They say you never really know someone until you see them at their worst. I used to think that was just something bitter people told themselves after a bad breakup. I was wrong. Dead wrong. My name is Daniel Foster, and I'm a civil engineer living in Charlotte, North Carolina. For 12 years, I thought I had it all figured out. A successful career, a beautiful home in the suburbs, two amazing kids, and a wife I would have moved mountains for. Jessica Foster, née Patterson, was my college sweetheart, the woman I proposed to on a beach in the Outer Banks, the mother of my children, and the person I trusted more than anyone in this world. Trust. That's a funny word, isn't it? We throw it around so casually. I trust you. 3 simple words that carry the weight of our entire lives. When you get married, you're not just signing a piece of paper. You're handing someone the keys to everything you are, everything you hope to be, and everything you've built. You're saying, "Here, take my heart, my future, my vulnerabilities, and please, don't destroy them." For 12 years, I believed Jessica held those keys with the same reverence I held hers. I was 36 years old when my world imploded. Our kids, Emma and Tyler, were 9 and 7 respectively. I had just made partner at Reynolds & Associates, a mid-sized engineering firm that specialized in commercial infrastructure. The promotion came with a significant raise, better benefits, and the kind of financial security that meant we could finally take that trip to Europe we'd been planning for years. Jessica worked part-time as a marketing coordinator for a local real estate development company, a job that gave her flexibility to be there for the kids while still maintaining her professional identity. On paper, we were living the American dream. But paper burns easily, doesn't it? Looking back now, I can see the signs I missed. The way she started going to the gym more frequently. The new attention to her appearance. The phone that suddenly had a password when it never did before. The late-night work meetings that seemed to multiply like rabbits. But here's the thing about trust. When you truly trust someone, you don't look for evidence of betrayal. You explain away the inconsistencies. You give them the benefit of the doubt. You tell yourself that you're being paranoid, that you're projecting your own insecurities onto an innocent situation. I was a fool, but I was a fool who loved his wife. This is the story of how that love was weaponized against me. How my marriage became a carefully constructed lie. How the woman I would have died for systematically dismantled everything we built together. But it's also the story of how I found my spine, reclaimed my dignity, and made sure that actions have consequences. Because that's something people forget in this age of no-fault divorces and amicable separations. Sometimes, people need to be held accountable for the destruction they cause. What follows isn't a tale of redemption or forgiveness. This isn't one of those stories where the protagonist learns that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. No, this is about justice. Cold, calculated, and absolutely deserved. This is about making sure that when someone burns your life to the ground, they don't get to walk away without a single scar. So buckle up. This is going to be a rough ride. March 15th started like any other Tuesday. I woke up at 6, went for my usual morning run through the neighborhood, showered, and headed downstairs to find Jessica already making breakfast for the kids. Emma was complaining about a math test she had that day, while Tyler was more interested in showing me a drawing he'd made of what he claimed was a dinosaur, but looked more like a deformed chicken. "Good morning, handsome," Jessica said, kissing my cheek as I poured myself coffee. She smelled like vanilla and cinnamon, the same perfume she'd worn since college. "Don't forget we have that parent-teacher conference tonight at 7. "Already on my calendar," I replied, ruffling Tyler's hair. "Think you can handle both meetings, or do you want to divide and conquer?" "Let's do them together. United front and all that." United front. The irony of those words would haunt me later. I left for work around 7:30, kissing Jessica goodbye and reminding the kids to listen to their mother. Traffic on I-77 was its usual nightmare, but I didn't mind. I spent the commute listening to a podcast about structural engineering innovations and mentally preparing for a presentation I had to give that afternoon about a new shopping complex project we were bidding on. The office was buzzing when I arrived. My assistant, Patricia, had already organized my schedule and left a stack of documents that needed review on my desk. I dove into work, losing myself in calculations and blueprints, the kind of focused productivity that had earned me the partnership in the first place. Around 11, my phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. "Can you grab milk on the way home? We're out." Simple, domestic, normal. I responded with a thumbs-up emoji and went back to work. The presentation went well. My boss, Robert Whitney, pulled me aside afterward to congratulate me on landing the preliminary approval for the shopping complex project. It was a $7 million contract, the kind of thing that would cement my reputation in the industry. We shook hands, and he mentioned something about discussing my future trajectory at the firm over drinks sometime soon. I was riding high when I left the office at 5:30, stopping at the grocery store to grab milk and, on impulse, a bouquet of flowers for Jessica. Yellow roses, her favorite. I walked through the front door at 6:47 p.m., roses in one hand, plastic grocery bag with milk in the other. The house smelled like garlic and tomatoes, Jessica's chicken parmesan, the one she made when she wanted to celebrate something. "Hey, you're home!" She appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. Still beautiful in that effortless way, wearing jeans and a fitted sweater that showed off the results of all those gym sessions. "Perfect timing. Dinner's almost ready." I held out the yellow roses. "For you." Her face lit up with genuine pleasure. That's the thing about liars. They can smile at you with complete authenticity even while they're destroying your life. "Daniel, they're beautiful. What's the occasion?" "Do I need an occasion to buy my wife flowers?" She kissed me, and I tasted her lip gloss. The same flavor she'd worn since college. Some things never change. Other things change completely while wearing the same disguise. "You're sweet. Let me put these in water. How was your day?" "Good." Whitney loved the preliminary plans for the Westbrook project. "That's wonderful." She arranged the roses in a crystal vase while I set the milk in the refrigerator. "I knew he would. You've been working so hard on that." We fell into our evening routine. Emma showed me her social studies project, a poster about the 13 colonies. Tyler wanted help building a Lego spaceship. Jessica set the table. I opened a bottle of red wine. We sat down together at 7:15, all four of us, like we had hundreds of times before. Normal, comfortable. A lie so well constructed I'd been living inside it for months without seeing the walls. "How was your day?" I asked Jessica as I cut Tyler's chicken into smaller pieces. "Busy. We're closing on that property development on Providence Road next week, so there's a lot of paperwork." She took a sip of wine. "I might need to work late Thursday to finalize everything." Thursday. Another late night. I nodded like I believed her. Emma was talking about her friend Madison's birthday party. Tyler was negotiating for dessert before finishing his vegetables. Jessica was laughing at something, her hand resting on mine. I looked at that hand, the one wearing the ring I'd saved 3 months' salary to buy, and wondered how many times it had touched someone else. But I'm getting ahead of myself again. After dinner, I helped with baths and bedtime. Tyler insisted on 3 stories instead of 2. Emma wanted to practice her multiplication tables one more time before the test. Standard chaos, standard love. The kind of ordinary moments you don't appreciate until they're gone. By 9:30, the kids were asleep and Jessica was on the couch with her laptop, supposedly reviewing marketing materials. I sat in my home office, staring at blueprints I wasn't really seeing. My phone buzzed. A text from my college roommate, Greg Thompson, who'd moved to Denver 5 years ago. "Hey man, random question. Saw your wife's LinkedIn. She's in real estate investing now? That's new." I stared at the message. Real estate investing? Not exactly, I typed back. She works in marketing for a development company. Three dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Weird. Her profile says she's a licensed real estate investor with a portfolio of commercial properties. Must have read it wrong. How's the family? I opened LinkedIn on my phone, found Jessica's profile. And there it was, a complete biography I'd never seen before. Licensed real estate investor, portfolio manager, specializing in commercial property acquisition and development. 5 years of experience building a diverse investment portfolio across the Charlotte metro area. 5 years. We'd been married 12 years. 5 years ago was when Tyler was 2. When Jessica was supposedly taking a break from her career to focus on the kids. When she'd told me she was just doing part-time consulting work to keep her hand in the industry. I clicked through to her connections. 217 people. I recognized maybe 30 of them. Colleagues from her marketing job, neighbors, family members. The rest were strangers, real estate agents, property developers, commercial brokers, and one name that made my stomach drop. Marcus Vance, CEO of Vance Properties LLC. I'd heard that name before. Jessica had mentioned him, her boss at the development company. The one who needed her at those late-night meetings. The one whose calls she always took in another room. I opened a new browser tab and searched for Vance Properties LLC, professional website, sleek design, photos of luxury developments and commercial properties. And there, in the Our Team section, was Marcus Vance himself. Mid-40s, expensive suit, practice smile. The kind of guy who'd look at home in a country club or a courtroom. The website listed recent acquisitions. A strip mall on Independence Boulevard. A warehouse complex near the airport. 3 apartment buildings in various stages of renovation. Impressive portfolio for a mid-sized firm. I clicked back to Jessica's LinkedIn. Under experience, she'd listed herself as a partner at Vance Properties LLC. Not an employee. A partner. My wife was a partner in a real estate investment firm I'd never heard of. I walked into the living room. Jessica looked up from her laptop, smiling. Hey, I'm almost done here. I didn't know you were on LinkedIn, I said casually. Oh, yeah. I updated my profile a few months ago. Networking, you know. Why? Greg saw it. Mentioned you're in real estate investing now. She didn't miss a beat. Well, sort of. I've been helping Marcus with some property acquisitions. Nothing major. Just advising on marketing strategy for commercial properties. Your profile says you're a partner. It's complicated. She closed her laptop. Marcus offered me a partnership stake in exchange for consulting work. It's more of a title than anything else. I don't actually invest money or anything. The lie came so smoothly. So easily, like she'd practiced it. That's great, I said. I'd love to see some of the properties you've worked on. They're not that interesting. Mostly warehouses and storage facilities. Still, I'm curious. I drive past commercial developments all day and never know what goes into acquiring them. She hesitated, just for a second. Sure, maybe this weekend. How about Thursday? You said you're working late on that Providence Road closing. I could meet you there, see the property, and we could grab dinner after. Daniel, it's just paperwork. You'd be bored out of your mind. I want to understand what you do. Support your career the way you support mine. I watched her calculate, watched her smile return. Okay, if you really want to, I'll text you the address Thursday. Perfect. I kissed her goodnight and went back to my office, opened my laptop, started digging. Vance Properties LLC was registered with the North Carolina Secretary of State. I pulled up the business filings. The company had been established 6 years ago. Current officers, Marcus Vance, CEO, Jessica Foster, CFO, not a marketing consultant, Chief Financial Officer. I searched the Mecklenburg County property records, typed in Vance Properties LLC as the owner. 17 properties came up. I started clicking through them. Commercial buildings, vacant lots, a few residential properties. Purchase dates ranging from 3 years ago to as recent as last month. I pulled up the deed for the most recent acquisition, a warehouse on Statesville Avenue, purchased for $340,000 in February. Signed by Marcus Vance and Jessica Foster on behalf of Vance Properties LLC, last month. While I was working late on the Westbrook project, my wife was signing property deeds. I searched for Marcus Vance in the North Carolina court records. Nothing. Clean record. Searched for Vance Properties LLC. Also nothing. Then I tried something else. I searched for Marcus Vance in the DEA's public database of federal drug investigations. Nothing. But I did find something interesting when I searched the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department's crime reports. 3 months ago, a warehouse on Statesville Avenue, the same address as the property Jessica had just signed for, had been the subject of a noise complaint. Officers responded. Found nothing suspicious. Case closed. The same warehouse. The same address. I sat back in my chair. My engineer's mind started working through the problem like I would a structural issue, looking for the weak points, the places where things didn't add up. Jessica claimed to be doing part-time marketing work, but she was actually a CFO of a real estate investment company. She'd been acquiring properties for years without telling me. She had business partnerships I knew nothing about. She was signing legal documents and making financial decisions completely separate from our marriage. And she'd lied about all of it. The question was why? I spent the next week becoming someone I didn't recognize. Every morning, I kissed Jessica goodbye. Every evening, I asked about her day. Every night, I held her while my mind cataloged evidence. The Daniel Foster who trusted his wife was gone. In his place, a man who understood that love without verification was just willful blindness. I started with the properties. All 17 of them. Vance Properties LLC owned a peculiar collection of real estate. Not the kind of portfolio you'd expect from a legitimate development company. No residential subdivisions, no commercial plazas. Instead, industrial warehouses on the outskirts of Charlotte, a storage facility near the airport, 2 seemingly abandoned buildings in neighborhoods where property values had tanked years ago. I drove past each one during my lunch breaks, snapping photos on my phone. Most looked vacant. Weeds growing through cracked pavement, faded "for lease" signs that had clearly been up for years. One warehouse had broken windows. Another had chain-link fencing with holes cut through it. These weren't investments. They were something else entirely. The noise complaint became my obsession. I'd filed a public records request for the full police report, claiming I was considering purchasing property in the area. The report arrived on Thursday. Officer J. Mitchell had responded to complaints about unusual traffic and chemical smells coming from 4771 Industrial Boulevard at 2:47 a.m. on December 18th. The property, one of Vance Properties' warehouses. The officer noted no visible activity upon arrival and unable to make contact with property owner. Case closed due to lack of evidence. But here's what caught my attention. The officer had run the property records. Jessica's name appeared as the registered agent. Her personal cell phone number was listed as the primary contact. The police had called my wife's phone at 3 in the morning about a warehouse I didn't know she owned. I checked our phone records from December. Jessica had received a call at 3:12 a.m. on December 18th. Duration: 4 minutes. She'd been in bed next to me. I remembered because Tyler had been sick with the flu that week, and I'd been getting up multiple times each night. She must have silenced the call. Then what? Slipped out to return it? I'd been exhausted, half-conscious. She could have been gone for an hour and I wouldn't have noticed. The thought made my stomach turn. Friday evening, Jessica announced she had a property showing on Saturday afternoon. Would I mind watching the kids? Of course not, I said. Which property? She barely looked up from her laptop. Just a commercial space. Potential tenant interested in a long-term lease. That's great. Where is it? Out near the airport. Boring stuff, really. Should only take a couple hours. I smiled, kissed her forehead. Take your time. That night, after she fell asleep, I installed a GPS tracker on her car. A small magnetic device I'd ordered online, tucked up under the rear bumper. The kind marketed to parents monitoring teenage drivers. I felt sick doing it. Then I remembered her name on 17 property deeds I'd never heard of, and the nausea passed. Saturday arrived with unseasonable warmth. Jessica dressed professionally, tailored pants, silk blouse, heels. She looked beautiful, successful, like exactly the kind of woman who'd be showing commercial real estate. Wish me luck, she said, grabbing her keys. You don't need luck. You're brilliant at what you do. The smile she gave me was radiant, genuine. Or maybe I just spent 12 years learning to see what I wanted to see. I waited 15 minutes after she left. Then I pulled up the GPS tracking app on my phone. Emma and Tyler were engrossed in a movie. I sat at the kitchen table, watching the little blue dot that represented my wife's car move through Charlotte. She headed north on I-77, took the exit toward the airport, just like she'd said. Then she kept going. Past the airport. Past the commercial district. Into an area of Charlotte I rarely visited. Industrial parks and distribution centers, the kind of neighborhood that existed purely for commerce, not people. The blue dot stopped at 4721 Industrial Boulevard, the warehouse from the police report. My hands were shaking. I zoomed in on the map, memorizing the location. Part of me wanted to drive there immediately, confront whatever was happening. But I'd learned something these past weeks. Patience yields better results than impulse. I watched the dot. It didn't move for 20 minutes. 40. An hour. Then another dot appeared. The tracking app showed nearby devices when you paid for the premium version. I'd upgraded. The new dot, another phone, had just arrived at the same location. I watched both dots remain stationary. Together, at a warehouse that supposedly sat vacant. Jessica had said 2 hours. She was gone for 3.5. When she returned home, she looked tired, frustrated even. How'd it go? I asked. She dropped her purse on the counter with more force than necessary. Waste of time. Guy was just kicking tires, not seriously interested. I swear some people have nothing better to do than look at properties they have no intention of leasing. That's annoying. Sorry, babe. It's fine, just part of the business. She kicked off her heels. How are the kids? Perfect angels. We're thinking pizza for dinner? Her smile returned. Sounds perfect. I ordered pizza. We ate as a family, watched a movie together, put the kids to bed. Made love that night with a tenderness that felt like goodbye, though she didn't know it yet. All the while, I thought about 2 dots on a map, 2 phones at a vacant warehouse, 3.5 hours on a Saturday afternoon. And I wondered who owned the second phone. Sunday, I told Jessica. I needed to run to the office. Just need to grab some files for the Henderson project. Hour, tops. On a Sunday? Partnership means the work never really stops. I shrugged apologetically. Price of success. She kissed me. Don't be too long. I drove to 4721 Industrial Boulevard instead. The warehouse sat at the end of a dead-end street, surrounded by similar buildings in various states of disrepair. Chain-link fence, cracked asphalt parking lot, the kind of place you'd drive past without a second glance. I parked a block away and approached on foot. The building was larger than I'd expected, maybe 15,000 square feet. Corrugated metal siding, faded to a rust brown. Most windows were boarded up, but I could see light seeping through gaps in the boards. Someone was inside. On a Sunday morning. I circled the perimeter, staying close to the fence line. At the back of the building, I found what I was looking for. A section of fence that had been cut and poorly repaired. Easy access. I slipped through. Up close, the warehouse showed signs of recent activity. Fresh tire tracks in the dirt. Cigarette butts that hadn't been weathered by rain. A side door with a new deadbolt that gleamed against the rusted frame. I tried the door. Locked, obviously. But there was a window, small, high up, with a broken board that left a gap just large enough to see through if I stood on the concrete parking barrier below. I climbed up, peered inside. The warehouse had been divided into sections. The area I could see held what looked like an office setup. Desk, filing cabinets, a computer. Nothing unusual about that. Except for the industrial scale on the desk. The kind that measured in kilograms with precision to the tenth of a gram. And the stacks of plastic-wrapped packages on the shelving unit behind it. I'm an engineer. I understand materials, weights, densities. Those packages were too uniform, too carefully wrapped. And there were dozens of them. My wife wasn't a real estate investor. She was running a drug operation. The realization hit like a physical blow. I nearly lost my balance on the parking barrier. Caught myself against the wall, breathing hard. How long had this been going on? 6 years since the company was established? Longer? Who else was involved? The mysterious second phone from yesterday? And the most painful question, had anything about our marriage been real? I took photos through the window. Not great quality, but enough to show the scale, the packages, the setup. Then I climbed down and got the hell out of there. My hands shook so badly I could barely start the car. I didn't go home. Not yet. I drove aimlessly through Charlotte, trying to process what I'd discovered, trying to figure out my next move. Because this wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was federal crime. This was prison time. This was our children's mother facing decades behind bars. And somewhere in the chaos of my thoughts, a cold clarity emerged. Jessica had made her choices. Now, I'd make mine. The drive home from that warehouse felt like moving through water. Every traffic light, every turn signal, every mundane detail of suburban Sunday afternoon life seemed to exist in a different universe from the one I'd just glimpsed. I parked in our driveway at 3:47 p.m., exactly where I'd left 2 hours earlier. The basketball hoop Tyler had begged for last Christmas stood sentinel over the concrete. Emma's chalk drawings, elaborate hopscotch patterns and hearts with our family's names inside, decorated the walkway. I sat in the car for 10 minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel, staring at those chalk hearts. Jessica's Lexus wasn't in the driveway yet. According to the GPS tracker I'd checked obsessively during the drive, she was still at the warehouse. Still with whoever owned that second phone. Still doing whatever the hell they were doing in a building that reeked of chemicals and felony charges. My phone buzzed. Jessica. Showing ran long. Be home by 5. Can you start dinner? Love you, I typed back. Sure thing. Drive safe. The lies flowed so easily now, for both of us. Inside, the house smelled like the vanilla candles Jessica loved. Emma's backpack was dumped by the stairs. She'd stayed at her friend Madison's last night. Tyler's Lego spaceship sat half-finished on the coffee table. Evidence of normal family life, frozen in place like artifacts from Pompeii. I went to my home office and locked the door. For the next hour, I did what I do best. I engineered a solution. First, I created a detailed spreadsheet of every property linked to Vance Properties LLC. 17 properties total, acquired over 6 years. I cross-referenced the purchase dates with our joint bank account statements, credit card records, and tax returns. The financial footprint was invisible. None of our money had been used for down payments or closing costs. These properties existed in a parallel financial universe, funded by sources I hadn't yet identified. But Jessica's name was on the deeds, her signature on the paperwork, her phone number on the police report. Second, I pulled up the police report again and read it more carefully. Officers Jameson and Park had responded to a noise complaint at 3:17 a.m. on December 8th. A neighbor reported loud machinery and strong chemical odors similar to paint thinner or acetone. The officers knocked, received no answer, noted the smells but determined they weren't strong enough to justify forced entry without a warrant. They'd called the contact number listed on the property registration, Jessica's cell phone, and left a voicemail. I checked our phone records from December 8th. Jessica had called me at 3:42 a.m. that night. I remembered the conversation. She'd claimed she was having trouble sleeping and had gone downstairs to watch TV. We'd talked for maybe 3 minutes about nothing in particular. Then she'd said she was tired and going back to bed. She'd been managing a police incident at a drug warehouse while talking to me about insomnia. The sheer audacity of it made my hands shake. Third, I researched Marcus Vance, CEO and founder of Vance Properties LLC, age 41, Charlotte native. His company website showed a portfolio of commercial properties throughout North Carolina: warehouses, strip malls, office buildings, professional headshots, testimonials, the whole legitimate business facade. His LinkedIn showed connections to local business leaders, Chamber of Commerce membership, even a charity golf tournament he'd sponsored last year. But when I dug deeper into public records, patterns emerged. Vance had been investigated twice by the IRS in the past decade. Both times the investigations were closed without charges. He'd been named in a civil lawsuit 4 years ago by a former business partner alleging financial fraud, but the case was settled out of court with sealed terms. His properties were registered through a maze of LLCs and shell companies that would make following the money trail nearly impossible without subpoena power. This wasn't some street-level dealer. This was organized, sophisticated, and deeply embedded in legitimate business structures. And my wife was his partner. I heard the garage door open at 5:03 p.m. I saved all my research to an encrypted cloud drive, cleared my browser history, and went downstairs. Jessica came through the door looking radiant. She'd changed clothes since this morning, now wearing jeans and a cream-colored sweater I'd bought her for her birthday. Her hair was freshly brushed, makeup perfect, no trace of whatever she'd been doing for the past 3.5 hours. "Hey, handsome," she said, kissing my cheek. "Sorry that ran so late. The clients were incredibly indecisive about the property. You know how it is." "No problem," I said. "How'd it go?" "I think they'll make an offer. Fingers crossed." She set her purse on the counter and opened the refrigerator. "Did you start dinner?" "Not yet. I got caught up with some work emails." "On a Sunday? Daniel, you just made partner. You're allowed to relax." She pulled out ingredients for pasta, her go-to easy meal. "Where are the kids?" "Emma's still at Madison's. Tyler's at your mom's, remember? We're picking him up after dinner." Right. She filled a pot with water. "So we have the house to ourselves for a bit." She smiled at me. That same smile I'd fallen in love with 14 years ago at a college party, when she'd been wearing a UNC sweatshirt and arguing passionately about marketing ethics with my roommate. That smile had convinced me to ask for her number. That smile had been there when I proposed on the beach at Outer Banks. That smile had greeted me in the delivery room when Emma was born. That smile was a lie. "Actually," I said, keeping my voice casual, "I was thinking about your real estate investing. You never really talk about it much." Her hands paused for just a fraction of a second while chopping an onion. "What do you mean?" "Greg Thompson mentioned seeing your LinkedIn profile. Said you're listed as CFO of some property company. I didn't even know you'd moved beyond the marketing coordinator role." She resumed chopping, her movements perfectly controlled. Oh, that? It's not a big deal. Marcus, he's the CEO. He asked me to take on more responsibility. It's still mostly part-time, but the title looks better for networking. Marcus Vance? Right. I've mentioned him before. She hadn't. Not once in 12 years. So you're actually buying properties? That's pretty impressive. Small stuff, mostly. Marcus handles the major decisions. I just help with the financial paperwork and client relations. She scraped the onions into a pan, the sizzle filling the kitchen. Why the sudden interest? Just curious. I mean, you're my wife. I should probably know more about your career. You've been busy with your own work. I didn't want to bore you with the details. She turned to face me, leaning against the counter. Is something wrong, Daniel? This was the moment. I could confront her right now. Lay out everything I'd discovered and watch her try to explain industrial scales and police reports and GPS coordinates. But I thought about the way she'd managed that 3 a.m. phone call in December. The way she'd maintained this double life for 6 years without a single slip. The way she'd probably already prepared explanations for every question I could ask. If I confronted her now, I'd lose the only advantage I had. She didn't know I knew. Nothing's wrong, I said. I'm proud of you, that's all. Her shoulders relaxed. Thank you, baby. That means a lot. She turned back to the stove, and I watched her cook dinner with the same easy competence she brought to everything. Humming softly to herself, occasionally glancing at her phone, completely at ease. I set the table. We ate pasta with marinara sauce and talked about Emma's upcoming school play and whether we should repaint the guest bedroom. We discussed Tyler's reading progress and debated vacation destinations for summer. We were the picture of a successful American marriage. And the entire time I was calculating. The DEA. That's who I needed. Not local police who might be overwhelmed or lack jurisdiction. Not the FBI, though they'd probably get involved eventually. The Drug Enforcement Administration had the resources and expertise to unravel whatever operation Jessica and Marcus Vance were running. But I needed more than what I had. I needed documentation that would make their case airtight. I needed evidence that couldn't be explained away by a good lawyer. I needed to see inside that operation. You know what? I said, setting down my fork. I'd love to see one of your properties, the real estate investment side of things. Would that be possible? Jessica looked up, surprised. Really? They're mostly just warehouses and commercial spaces. Pretty boring. I'm an engineer. I find buildings interesting. I smiled. Humor me. Maybe next weekend? She hesitated. Just for a moment, but I saw it. The calculation behind her eyes. Sure, she said finally. I'll set something up with Marcus. He'd probably enjoy giving you the tour. He's really proud of what we've built. Perfect. I'm looking forward to it. We finished dinner. We picked up Tyler from Jessica's mother's house. We gave the kids their baths and read bedtime stories. We went through all the motions of normal family life. And when Jessica fell asleep beside me at 11:30 p.m., her breathing deep and even, I lay awake in the darkness and planned my next move. She'd offered to show me a property. Fine. But I wasn't going to wait for a sanitized tour of some empty warehouse. I was going to see the real thing. The alarm went off at 6:30. Jessica stirred beside me, reaching across to silence it before it could wake the kids. Her hair was messy, face soft with sleep. She looked like the woman I'd married. Morning, she mumbled, eyes still closed. Morning. She rolled toward me, draping an arm across my chest. What time did you come to bed? I didn't hear you. Around 1, couldn't sleep. Still thinking about the Hampton project? I let her believe it. Yeah, the calculations aren't adding up. She kissed my shoulder. You'll figure it out. You always do. The casual intimacy felt obscene. Her hand on my skin. her breath warm against my neck. This woman who'd been lying to me for 6 years, maybe longer, touching me like nothing was wrong. I got up and showered, letting the hot water run until my skin turned red. When I came back to the bedroom, Jessica was already dressed. Dark jeans, a cream sweater that probably cost more than I realized. Her work clothes. Or were they her other work clothes? "I've got that property showing this morning," she said, applying lipstick in the mirror. "The couple from California. Should be done by noon." "Which property?" She didn't miss a beat. "The townhouse on Providence Road, the one with the renovated kitchen." I knew every property Vance Properties owned. There was no townhouse on Providence Road. "Sounds promising," I said. Fingers crossed. She grabbed her purse, the expensive leather one I'd bought her for Christmas. "Oh, and I need to stop by the office after. Marcus wants to go over some paperwork." Marcus. She said his name so easily, like he was just another colleague, not someone she was running a criminal enterprise with. "Will you be home for dinner?" "Definitely. I'll pick up something from that Italian place you like." She kissed me goodbye. Vanilla and cinnamon, the same perfume she'd worn since college, back when I thought I knew everything about her. I waited until her car pulled out of the driveway before I moved. The kids were getting ready for school. Emma was arguing with Tyler about who got to use the bathroom first. Normal morning chaos. I made them breakfast, signed Emma's permission slip, found Tyler's missing shoe. All the mundane tasks of parenthood, performed on autopilot while my mind worked through the problem. I needed more evidence. Something concrete enough that the DEA couldn't ignore it, couldn't dismiss as circumstantial. Property deeds and a suspicious warehouse weren't enough. I needed to connect Jessica and Marcus directly to whatever was happening in that building. After I dropped the kids at school, I didn't go to the office. Instead, I drove to a strip mall in South Charlotte and parked outside a nondescript storefront, Triangle Security Solutions. The kind of place that advertised GPS trackers and nanny cams, but also sold equipment that lived in legal gray areas. The guy behind the counter was maybe 25, with a neck tattoo and bored eyes. "Help you?" "I need surveillance equipment, audio and video. Small enough to hide, good enough quality to be useful." He didn't ask questions, just showed me what they had. I walked out 30 minutes later with 2 wireless cameras the size of quarters, a voice-activated audio recorder that looked like a USB drive, and a device that could clone RFID access cards. Next stop was a coffee shop with free Wi-Fi. I pulled up the property records again, cross-referencing the addresses with satellite imagery. Of the 17 properties Vance Properties owned, 12 were warehouses or industrial buildings. 3 were vacant lots. 2 were actual residential properties, a duplex in Noda and a small house in Plaza Midwood. The duplex showed signs of occupancy, cars in the driveway, curtains in the windows. The house looked empty. I checked the GPS tracker on Jessica's phone. She was at the Vance Properties office on East Boulevard, exactly where she'd said she'd be. Either the property showing had been canceled, or it had never existed in the first place. I had maybe 2 hours before she'd expect me to be unreachable in meetings. The house in Plaza Midwood was a small bungalow on a quiet street. Peeling paint, overgrown yard, no cars in the driveway. I parked a block away and walked up like I belonged there. Clipboard in hand, dressed in khakis and a button-down, the universal uniform of someone conducting official business. The front door was locked, but the side gate wasn't. The backyard was a mess of weeds and a rusted barbecue grill. The back door had a simple deadbolt and a window I could reach if I stood on the concrete step. I'd never broken into anything in my life. Never even shoplifted as a teenager. But I found myself checking the neighboring houses for witnesses, then wrapping my hand in my jacket and pressing against the window until something gave. The old wood frame splintered with a crack that sounded deafening in the quiet morning. No alarm, no barking dogs. Just silence. I climbed through, careful of the broken glass, and found myself in a kitchen that smelled like mildew and old cigarettes. Empty except for a card table and two folding chairs. No dishes, no appliances beyond the ancient stove and refrigerator that came with the place. The living room was the same. Bare walls, stained carpet, nothing that suggested anyone actually lived here. But there were signs of use: scuff marks on the floor, a power strip plugged into the wall, the faint chemical smell I'd noticed at the warehouse. Upstairs, I found what I was looking for. The larger bedroom had been converted into an office. 2 desks, filing cabinets, a commercial shredder, and a safe the size of a mini fridge. The walls were covered with maps of Charlotte marked with colored pins. Red pins clustered around certain neighborhoods. Blue pins scattered throughout the city. Green pins forming a line along I-85 toward the South Carolina border. On one desk sat a laptop, closed but plugged in. On the other, stacks of ledgers bound with rubber bands. I opened one at random. Dates, amounts, initials. Columns of numbers that meant nothing without context, but the amounts were staggering. 50,000, 80,000, 120,000. All recorded in neat handwriting I didn't recognize. I pulled out my phone and started photographing everything. The maps, the ledgers, the safe, every document I could find. My hands were shaking, making some of the photos blurry, but I kept going. A filing cabinet held manila folders, organized by property address. I found the one for 4721 Industrial Boulevard, the warehouse I'd visited. Inside were invoices from something called Precision Chemical Supply, shipping manifests, and a handwritten note. Next delivery 320, usual amount, confirm with R. 3 days from now. R. Another player I didn't know about. I was photographing the contents when I heard it. A car door slamming outside. My heart stopped. I moved to the window and looked down at the street. A black Lexus SUV had parked in the driveway. Jessica's car. She was early. Or I'd lost track of time. Or the GPS tracker was wrong. I watched her get out, talking on her phone. She looked annoyed, gesturing with her free hand. She was alone, at least. Small mercy. I had maybe 30 seconds before she came inside. The broken window. She'd see it immediately. There was no way to hide what I'd done, no way to explain my presence here. I could try to hide, wait for her to leave, but if she came upstairs, I made a decision. I walked down the stairs as she unlocked the front door. Met her in the hallway as she stepped inside. The shock on her face was absolute. Her phone clattered to the floor. Daniel? What? How did you? Sit down, Jessica. I don't understand. Why are you? Sit down. Something in my voice made her obey. She sank onto one of the folding chairs in the kitchen, staring at me like I was a stranger. Maybe I was. I pulled out my phone and showed her the photos. The ledgers, the maps, the warehouse, the chemical invoices. Watched the color drain from her face as she realized what I knew. We need to talk, I said. And this time, you're going to tell me the truth. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Jessica stood frozen in the doorway, her face cycling through emotions faster than I could track them. Shock, fear, calculation, and finally something that looked almost like relief. How long have you known? Her voice was steady. Too steady. I held up the ledger. About 48 hours. Long enough to see the warehouse. Long enough to understand what you've been doing. She stepped inside and closed the door behind her, locking it with a deliberate click. The sound made my pulse spike, but I kept my expression neutral. I'd positioned myself near the back exit before she arrived. Always have an escape route. Something my father taught me about construction sites that apparently applied to confronting your criminal wife, too. Daniel, you need to listen to me. She set her purse down slowly, hands visible. This isn't what you think. Really? Because I think you're laundering drug money through fake real estate transactions. I think you and Marcus Vance are running narcotics out of that warehouse on Industrial Boulevard. I think every property showing and late meeting for the past year has been you building a criminal empire while I tucked our kids into bed. Her jaw tightened. Marcus and I are business partners, that's all. Business partners. I laughed, and it sounded wrong even to my ears, brittle and sharp. Show me one property then. Just one legitimate investment. Take me there right now. Daniel? No. I stepped toward her, ledger still in hand. You've had 12 years to lie to me. I'm done listening. Show me a property or admit what you really are. Something shifted in her eyes. The mask she'd been wearing, the concerned wife, the reasonable woman trying to explain. It cracked. What lay beneath was colder than I'd expected. You broke into this house, she said quietly. You've been following me, installing tracking devices on my car. Yes, I found it yesterday. Do you know how that looks? Not as bad as 17 properties tied to drug trafficking. You can't prove that. The ledgers show cash deposits of $40,000 to $60,000 weekly. The warehouse has a police report about chemical smells at 3 in the morning. Your LLC owns properties across 3 counties, none of which appear on our tax returns. I'm a civil engineer, Jessica, not an idiot. The math doesn't lie. She moved to the window, peering through the blinds at the empty street outside. What do you want? The question caught me off guard. What do I want? Everyone wants something, Daniel. You didn't call the police before coming here. You didn't go to the DEA. You came to confront me first, which means you're looking for something. So what is it? Money? A clean divorce? What's your price? The casual way she said it, like our marriage was just another transaction to negotiate, made my stomach turn. I want the truth. When did this start? She was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried a weariness I'd never heard before. 3 years ago, Marcus approached me at a networking event. His business was struggling. He needed someone good with numbers, someone who could make things look legitimate on paper. It was supposed to be temporary. Just help him restructure some financing, clean up his books. And then I saw how much money was moving through. Real money, Daniel. Not the scraps from your engineering contracts or my part-time marketing job. Enough to actually build something. We were building something. We had a life. We had a mortgage and 2 car payments and a retirement fund that might let us stop working when we're 70. Her voice rose. Do you know what it's like watching you celebrate making partner while I'm still scheduling other people's meetings? Being proud of a $7 million contract that you'll see maybe 5% of? So you decided to launder drug money instead. I decided to take control of my own life. She turned from the window to face me. Marcus needed someone smart. Someone who understood how to structure deals, how to make transactions look clean. I'm good at this, Daniel. Better than I ever was at anything else. You're good at lying. I'll give you that. Her expression hardened. What are you going to do? I'd been asking myself that question since I first saw the warehouse. The smart move was to walk away, file for divorce, protect myself and the kids from the fallout. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw Emma asking when Mommy would be home. Tyler drawing pictures of our family. 12 years of breakfast and bedtime stories and believing in something that never existed. I want to see one of these properties, I said. A real one. You claim you're a legitimate investor? Prove it. Show me something that isn't a front? Jessica studied me, calculating. Okay, there's a property on Eastway Drive. Small office building, fully leased, completely legitimate. I'll take you there right now. Lead the way. We drove separately. I wasn't stupid enough to get in a car with her. She took her Mercedes. I followed in my Honda, both of us maintaining the pretense of normalcy even as everything crumbled. The GPS tracker I'd installed was still transmitting. I'd removed it that morning and placed it in her gym bag instead, figuring she'd check the car but not her personal items. Eastway Drive cut through a commercial district that had seen better days. Strip malls with half-empty parking lots, pawn shops, a check-cashing place with bars on the windows. Jessica pulled into a lot in front of a 2-story brick building that looked like it had been built in the 70s and hadn't been updated since. I parked beside her and got out. The building had a faded sign reading, Eastway Professional Center. Through the windows, I could see dark offices, no lights, no movement. Fully leased? I asked. The tenants are mostly service businesses, accountants, insurance agents. They're not here on Saturdays. She unlocked the front door. She actually had a key, which surprised me. And we stepped into a lobby that smelled of old carpet and industrial cleaner. A directory on the wall listed 6 businesses, 2 accounting firms, a bail bondsman, a tax preparation service, an immigration attorney, and something called Prestige Consulting Services. "Show me the lease agreements," I said. Jessica led me to a small office off the lobby, unlocked it, and pulled out a filing cabinet. Inside were folders with lease documents, all apparently legitimate. Monthly rent ranging from $800 to $1,200 per unit. Security deposits, signed contracts. I pulled out my phone and photographed several pages, then called the number listed for one of the accounting firms. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. "Thank you for calling Davidson & Associates. Our office hours are Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Please leave a message." I tried the bail bondsman next. Same thing. Voicemail, professional recording, business hours listed. "Satisfied?" Jessica asked. I wasn't. Something felt wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on what. The building existed. The leases existed. The businesses had phone numbers and voicemail systems. But the whole thing felt hollow, like a movie set that looked real from the front but was just plywood and paint behind the facade. "How much did you pay for this building?" $240,000. I put down $48,000 cash, financed the rest through a commercial lender. "And the monthly revenue?" "About $6,000 in rent, minus operating expenses and the mortgage payment. It nets around $1,500 a month." The numbers were too clean, too perfect. "Show me the bank statements." "Daniel, show me." She pulled out another folder. Bank statements for an account in the name of Eastway Holdings LLC, showing regular deposits matching the rent amounts she'd quoted. Regular withdrawals for utilities, maintenance, property taxes. I photographed those too, my mind racing. If this was a front, it was an elaborate one. But that was the point, wasn't it? Make it look so legitimate that no one would question it. Use real tenants paying real rent to justify the property ownership, then layer the illegal money through other properties that didn't have the same scrutiny. "The warehouse on Industrial Boulevard," I said. "Show me the lease agreements for that." Jessica's expression shifted. "That's a different situation." "I'm sure it is." "Daniel, you need to understand something." She stepped closer, her voice dropping. "There are people involved in this who don't appreciate curiosity. Marcus has partners, serious people. If you start asking questions, making calls, drawing attention, are you threatening me? I'm warning you, for your own safety, for Emma and Tyler's safety." The mention of our children's names in that context made my blood run cold. "Did you just threaten our kids?" "No. I'm telling you that this is bigger than you think, and poking around could get people hurt. People we both care about." I stared at the woman I'd married, trying to find any trace of the person I'd thought I knew. She was gone. Maybe she'd never existed. "I'm going to the DEA," I said quietly. "I'm going to give them everything I've found. And then I'm going to divorce you and fight for full custody of our children because I will not let them grow up thinking what you've done is acceptable." Jessica's face went pale. "Daniel, please. We're done here." I walked out of that building and didn't look back. I drove home in a fog, Jessica's words echoing in my skull. Serious partners. Asking questions could get you hurt, could get our children hurt. The GPS tracker on her car showed she'd stayed at the Plaza Midwood house for another 40 minutes after I left. Then she'd driven to a strip mall on South Boulevard, parked for 23 minutes, and finally headed toward our neighborhood. She arrived home 17 minutes after I did. I was sitting at the kitchen table when she walked in. Her face was composed, neutral. She set her purse on the counter and pulled out her phone. "We need to talk about what happens next," she said. "I'm listening." She sat across from me. "You can't go to the DEA. You can't go to the police. You can't tell anyone what you found." "Or what? Your business partner sends someone to make me disappear?" "Daniel, I'm trying to protect you. Protect our family." "By laundering drug money?" She flinched. "I never said it was drugs. You didn't have to. Industrial scales, chemical supplies, warehouses with strange smells at 3 in the morning. What else would it be?" Jessica was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "I didn't know at first. I swear I didn't. Marcus told me he was expanding his real estate portfolio, that he needed help with the financial side. The money was good, really good. By the time I realized what was actually happening, you were already in too deep, yes? And you just kept going? Kept lying to me? Kept putting our children at risk? I was trying to find a way out." Her eyes met mine. I still am. I almost believed her. Almost. But I'd spent the last week discovering that my entire marriage was a performance, and I wasn't about to fall for whatever script she was reading from now. "How much?" I asked. "What? How much have you made from this? How much money have you hidden from me?" She looked away. "There's an account in the Cayman Islands, just under $2 million. The number hit me like a physical blow. $2 million. While I'd been working 60-hour weeks, proud of my partnership and my salary, my wife had been accumulating a fortune through criminal enterprise. "Does Marcus know I found the house?" "Yes, I called him after you left." "And?" "He wants to meet with you." I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "Absolutely not. Daniel, please. He just wants to talk, to explain the situation, to work something out." "Work something out? What does that even mean?" Jessica's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and something shifted in her expression. Fear, maybe, or calculation. "He's outside," she said. "What?" "Marcus is outside, in his car. He wants to talk to you, now." I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. "You brought him here? To our house? Where our children sleep?" "They're at my mother's, remember? The sleepover you agreed to this morning?" I had agreed to that. Emma and Tyler had been excited about spending the weekend with their grandmother. At the time, I'd thought it was just a normal family arrangement. Now I wondered if Jessica had planned it, if she'd known this confrontation was coming. "I'm not talking to him." "You don't have a choice." Jessica's voice was flat. "You opened this door, Daniel. You broke into that house. You saw things you weren't supposed to see. Marcus needs to know what you're going to do with that information." "I already told you what I'm going to do." "Then tell him." The doorbell rang. Jessica stood. "Please, just listen to what he has to say. For me. For the kids." Every instinct screamed at me to call 911, to lock the doors, to refuse this insanity. But another part of me, the engineer, the problem solver, wanted to understand the full scope of what I was dealing with. You can't dismantle a structure without knowing how it's built. 5 minutes, I said. Jessica opened the door. Marcus Vance was not what I expected. I'd imagined someone rough, street-hardened, covered in gold chains and radiating menace. Instead, the man who walked into my kitchen looked like he belonged at a country club. Mid-40s, fit, wearing khakis and a polo shirt. His handshake was firm, his smile genuine. Daniel, good to finally meet you. Jessica's told me a lot about you. I wish I could say the same, he laughed. Fair enough. Mind if I sit? I gestured to the chair Jessica had vacated. She remained standing by the counter, her arms crossed. Marcus settled in, completely at ease. So, you've been doing some detective work. I've been learning about my wife's secret career. Jessica's been invaluable to my organization. She has a real gift for financial structures, for making complex transactions look simple and legitimate. I'm lucky to have her. Is that what we're calling it? Lucky? I prefer to think of it as mutually beneficial. She's made excellent money. I've expanded my business. Everyone wins. Except the people whose lives are destroyed by whatever you're moving through those warehouses. Marcus's smile didn't waver. I'm a real estate developer, Daniel. I buy properties. I renovate them. I rent or sell them. What my tenants do in those properties isn't my concern. You expect me to believe you don't know what's happening in your own warehouses? I expect you to understand that ignorance is a powerful legal defense. He leaned forward. But we're not here to debate my business practices. We're here to discuss yours. Mine? You broke into one of my properties. You photographed confidential business documents. You've been tracking your wife's movements without her knowledge. From a certain perspective, you're the one engaging in criminal behavior. From a certain perspective, you're a drug dealer. Prove it. His voice was still pleasant, but something cold flickered in his eyes. Go ahead. Take what you found to the DEA. Let's see what happens. You're threatening me. I'm explaining reality. You have some photographs of ledgers and maps. No drugs, no witnesses, no evidence of any actual crime. Meanwhile, I have security footage of you breaking and entering. I have documentation showing Jessica's legitimate role in my legitimate business. And I have lawyers who are very, very good at their jobs. Jessica spoke from the counter. Marcus, please. He held up a hand. I'm not trying to be adversarial here, Daniel. I'm trying to help you understand the situation. You're a smart guy, an engineer. You understand systems, consequences, chain reactions. Get to the point. The point is this. You can walk away. Forget what you saw, forget what you think you know, and go back to your life. Jessica will wind down her involvement with my company over the next few months. You'll have your wife back, your family intact, and nobody gets hurt. And if I don't walk away? Marcus spread his hands. Then things get complicated, messy. People start asking questions about why a respected civil engineer is harassing a legitimate businessman. Your partnership at Reynolds and Associates becomes difficult. Your reputation suffers. And Jessica faces consequences for your actions. You'd throw her under the bus to protect yourself? I'd do what I need to do, just like you would. He stood. Think about it, Daniel. Really think. Is this the hill you want to die on? He walked to the door, then paused. Oh, and Daniel? That GPS tracker on Jessica's car? Cute. But my people found it 3 days ago. We've been feeding you exactly what we wanted you to see. The door closed behind him. I looked at Jessica. She wouldn't meet my eyes. 3 days, I said slowly. You've known I was tracking you for 3 days. Daniel? The warehouse, the house, all of it. You led me there. You wanted me to find those ledgers. I needed you to understand how serious this is, how dangerous it would be to what? To tell the truth? To stop you from committing crimes? To protect our family? Our family, I laughed. We don't have a family, Jessica. We have a lie that you've been maintaining for 3 years, maybe longer. Maybe our entire marriage has been whatever you needed it to be at any given moment. I grabbed my keys from the counter. Where are you going? She asked. Away from you. Away from this. Daniel, please. Just think about what Marcus said. Think about the kids. Think about everything we'd lose. I stopped at the door. We've already lost everything. You just haven't realized it yet. I drove to the nearest Walmart parking lot and sat in my car, hands shaking on the steering wheel. The dashboard clock read 11:47 p.m. In 13 minutes, it would be a new day. March 23rd. 1 week since my world had imploded. My phone buzzed. Jessica. Please come home. We need to talk about this like adults. Like adults. The woman who'd been laundering drug money wanted to discuss maturity. I turned off my phone and stared at the fluorescent lights of the store. A few late-night shoppers pushed carts across the parking lot, their lives continuing in blissful normalcy. I envied them. The smart move was obvious. Walk away. Take Marcus's deal. Let Jessica gradually extricate herself from whatever hell she'd fallen into and rebuild some semblance of a life. The kids would have both parents. I'd have my career. We could get divorced quietly, split assets, move on. Except I couldn't. Not because of some noble principle about justice. Not because I was a good citizen who believed in the rule of law. But because every time I closed my eyes, I saw those ledgers. Millions of dollars. 3 years of lies. And Jessica's face when she'd admitted it. Not ashamed, not apologetic, just calculating. Trying to determine which version of the truth would work best. I restarted my phone and opened my contacts. Scrolled past Jessica's name, past my parents, past Robert Whitney and Patricia, and everyone else in my normal life. Found the number I'd saved earlier that week. Special Agent Lawrence Mitchell, DEA Charlotte Field Division. My finger hovered over the call button. Marcus's voice echoed in my head. Your children will grow up visiting their mother in federal prison. Is that what you want? I pressed call. It rang 3 times before a groggy voice answered. Mitchell. My name is Daniel Foster, I said. I have information about a drug operation in Charlotte. Multiple properties, money laundering through real estate transactions, manufacturing facilities. A pause. Background noise. Mitchell was sitting up, becoming alert. Mr. Foster, it's almost midnight. Are you in immediate danger? No, but I need to meet with you tomorrow, early, before anyone knows I'm talking to you. What's your relationship to this operation? I closed my eyes. My wife is the CFO. Another pause, longer this time. Where are you right now? Walmart parking lot on Independence Boulevard. Stay there. I'm sending a unit to bring you in. No, I said quickly. Not tonight. I need to think about how to do this right. I have 2 kids. I need to make sure they're protected. Mr. Foster, if you're in possession of information about an active drug operation, tomorrow, I interrupted. 9 a.m. I'll come to your office. I'll bring everything I have, but tonight, I need to figure out how to keep my children safe. Mitchell was quiet for a moment. All right. 9 a.m. Charlotte Field Division office on Tyvala Road. Ask for me at the front desk. But Mr. Foster, if you're planning to go back home tonight, be careful. Don't confront anyone. Don't tell anyone about this call. Understood. I hung up and sat in the silence of my car. The Walmart sign hummed overhead. A shopping cart rattled past, abandoned by someone too lazy to return it. What had I just done? My phone buzzed again. Jessica, of course. Daniel, please. The kids are asking where you are. It was almost midnight. The kids were asleep. She was lying even now. I typed back. Staying at a hotel tonight. Need space to think. Tell them I had an early work emergency. Her response came immediately. Which hotel? I didn't answer. Instead, I started the car and drove. Not to a hotel, too easy to trace. Instead, I headed south on I-77, taking random exits, doubling back, making sure no one was following me. Paranoid, maybe. But Marcus had known about my surveillance for 3 days. Who knew what else he knew? I ended up at a Best Western in Rock Hill, just across the South Carolina border. Paid cash. Used a fake name. The clerk, a tired-looking woman in her 50s, barely glanced at me as she handed over the keycard. The room was generic. Beige walls, floral bedspread, abstract art that meant nothing. I sat on the bed and pulled out my laptop, connecting to the hotel's Wi-Fi through a VPN I'd downloaded earlier that week. Time to see exactly what I had. I'd photographed everything at the Plaza Midwood house. Ledgers, maps, invoices, shipping manifests. I'd also pulled property records for all 17 properties owned by Vance Properties LLC. Tax assessments, utility bills. Everything was stored in an encrypted cloud folder. Now I organized it. Created a timeline. Cross-referenced dates in the ledgers with property purchases. Matched chemical supply invoices to specific warehouse addresses. The pattern was clear. Vance Properties would purchase a property, usually industrial, sometimes residential, through a legitimate-looking real estate transaction. Jessica would arrange financing, often through shell companies. Within weeks, the property would show massive utility usage. Chemical suppliers would make deliveries. Then, after several months, the property would be sold to another LLC, usually at a loss. The loss was the key. Who sells property at a loss unless they're washing money through the transaction? I found the police report from December again. Officers had responded to complaints about chemical smells at a warehouse on Wilkinson Boulevard at 3 a.m. The report noted that representatives from Vance Properties arrived within 20 minutes. Impressive response time for a middle-of-the-night complaint. Officers found nothing suspicious. Case closed. 20-minute response time at 3 a.m. Someone had been monitoring that property 24/7. I dug deeper into the Cayman account Jessica had opened. She'd made her first deposit 3 years ago, $50,000. Since then, deposits came monthly, ranging from $25,000 to $200,000. Current balance, $2.1 million. 3 years. Our entire life had been a lie for 3 years. I thought back to when it started. 3 years ago, Emma was 6, Tyler was 4. Jessica had just started her part-time marketing job. I'd been working on the Ballantine Commons project, putting in 70-hour weeks. I'd been grateful she'd found something to keep her busy, to give her adult interaction beyond playdates and PTA meetings. How convenient for her. My phone buzzed. Not Jessica this time. Unknown number? I stared at it, debating. Finally answered. Daniel. Marcus's voice, calm and measured. I assume you're somewhere safe, thinking things through. How did you get this number? Please, you think we don't know everything about you? I know where you are right now. Best Western, room 237. South Carolina was a nice touch, by the way. Shows you're thinking. My blood went cold. I walked to the window, peered through the curtains. The parking lot looked empty. Relax, Marcus continued. No one's coming for you. I'm calling because I want you to understand something. The offer I made earlier? That's not a negotiation. That's not a threat. It's a gift. Walk away and everyone wins. Your kids keep both parents. You keep your career. Jessica gets out clean. Everyone lives. And if I don't, then you're choosing to destroy your family. Not me. Not Jessica. You. Because whatever you think you know, whatever you think you can prove, it won't matter. You'll burn everything down, and for what? Revenge? Justice? He laughed softly. There's no justice here, Daniel. Just consequences. You're running a drug operation, manufacturing, distribution, money laundering. You think I'm going to let that continue? What you'll let happen? Another laugh. You don't have any power here. You never did. Jessica tried to tell you, we knew you were investigating. We let you find what you found. We controlled every step. Then why are you calling? If you're so in control, why bother? Silence. I'd hit something. Because, Marcus finally said, despite everything, Jessica still cares about you. About those kids. She doesn't want to see you throw your life away. So I'm asking you, one last time, walk away. Tomorrow morning, go to work. File for divorce if you want. Split custody, move on, or make the other choice and watch everything you love turn to ashes. The line went dead. I stood at the window, heart pounding. He knew where I was. He knew I'd called Mitchell, or at least suspected it. This whole conversation was designed to scare me, to make me second-guess the meeting tomorrow. It was working. I looked at the clock. 1:33 a.m. 7.5 hours until my meeting with Mitchell. 7.5 hours to decide whether to destroy my family or become complicit in a criminal operation. No, that wasn't the choice. That was how Marcus wanted me to frame it. The real choice was simpler. Tell the truth or live a lie. I'd been living a lie for 3 years already. I knew exactly how that felt. I opened my laptop again and started writing everything down. Every conversation, every discovery, every threat. If I was going to do this, I was going to do it right. By the time the sun rose over Rock Hill, I had 47 pages of documentation ready for Special Agent Mitchell. I arrived at the DEA Charlotte Field Division office at 8:47 a.m., 13 minutes early. The building was unremarkable. Gray concrete, tinted windows, the kind of government architecture designed to blend into the landscape. I sat in my car for those 13 minutes, watching people arrive for work. Normal people with normal jobs who weren't about to destroy their families. At 8:59, I grabbed my laptop bag and walked inside. Special Agent Lawrence Mitchell was younger than I'd expected, maybe 40, with the build of someone who still hit the gym regularly. He met me in the lobby, shook my hand, and led me through security to a conference room that smelled like old coffee and recycled air. Mr. Foster, thank you for coming in. I set my laptop on the table. I have everything organized. Property records, financial documents, photographs, timeline of suspicious activities. He held up a hand. Before we get into that, I need to make sure you understand what you're doing here. Once you give me this information, there's no taking it back. An investigation will begin. People will be arrested. Your wife will likely face federal charges. I understand. Do you have an attorney? Not yet. You should get one. Today. He slid a business card across the table. This is someone who specializes in cases like yours, where a family member is cooperating against a spouse. I pocketed the card. What happens to my kids? That depends on a lot of factors. Your wife's level of involvement, whether she cooperates, the charges filed. But Mr. Foster, Daniel, I need you to be clear about something. If your wife is as deeply involved as you've indicated, she's looking at serious prison time. 10 years minimum, possibly 20 or more depending on the scope of the operation. 20 years. Emma would be 29, Tyler would be 27. Their mother would miss everything: graduations, weddings, grandchildren. I opened my laptop anyway. For the next 4 hours, I walked Mitchell through everything. The 17 properties, the ledgers showing millions in cash transactions, the warehouse with industrial equipment, the Cayman Islands account, Jessica's partnership with Marcus Vance, the police reports, the chemical supply invoices, every photograph, every document, every lie. Mitchell took notes, asked questions, occasionally stepped out to consult with colleagues. Around noon, 2 more agents joined us, Special Agent Patricia Reeves and someone from the Financial Crimes Unit whose name I immediately forgot. "This is excellent documentation," Reeves said, scrolling through my photographs. "How long did it take you to compile all this?" "About a week." She exchanged a look with Mitchell. "Mr. Foster, I have to ask, did you ever witness any actual drug manufacturing or distribution? See any controlled substances?" "No, just the equipment and the financial records." "And your wife never explicitly told you she was involved in drug trafficking?" "She said she was helping Marcus Vance with financial structures." She admitted there was illegal money involved, but claimed she was trying to find a way out. Mitchell leaned forward. Did she seem afraid of Vance? Was there any indication she was being coerced? I thought about Jessica's face when she'd admitted the truth. The calculation in her eyes. The way she'd said, "I'm good at this, Daniel. Better than I ever was at anything else." No, I said. She wasn't afraid. She was proud. The investigation moved faster than I expected. Within 3 days, the DEA had secured warrants for all 17 properties. They'd subpoenaed financial records for Vance Properties LLC and begun surveillance on Marcus Vance and his known associates. I'd moved into a furnished apartment in Ballantyne, paying month to month while everything fell apart. Jessica had called 63 times in the first 2 days. I'd answered once just to tell her I'd contacted an attorney and she should do the same. She'd cried, begged me to reconsider, said I was destroying our family over a misunderstanding. I'd hung up. My attorney, Richard Pemberton, was exactly what you'd expect from someone who charged $450 an hour. Sharp, ruthless, and completely uninterested in my feelings about the situation. Your wife committed multiple felonies, he'd said at our first meeting. Your cooperation with federal authorities protects you from any potential conspiracy charges. Now we focus on protecting your parental rights and your assets. The kids were the hardest part. Jessica's mother had them for the first week, fed some story about me having a work emergency out of state. But eventually, I had to tell them something. I picked them up on a Saturday afternoon, took them to their favorite pizza place, and tried to explain that Mommy and Daddy were having serious problems, that we loved them very much, that none of this was their fault. Emma, 9 years old and too perceptive for her own good, asked, "Is Mommy in trouble?" "Yes, sweetheart, she is." "What kind of trouble?" "The kind where grown-ups make bad choices and have to face consequences." Tyler, 7, and still believing the world was fundamentally fair, said, "But if she says sorry, it'll be okay, right?" I'd held him close and lied. "We'll figure it out, buddy." The raids happened on April 12th, 3 weeks after my meeting with Mitchell. Simultaneous operations at all 17 properties, plus Marcus Vance's home and the Vance Properties office. I watched the news coverage from my apartment, Emma and Tyler at school, unaware their world was ending. They found exactly what I documented, plus more. 3 active manufacturing sites, 15 kilograms of fentanyl in various stages of processing, $2 million in cash hidden in a storage unit, records linking the operation to a Mexican cartel that supplied the raw materials. Jessica was arrested at our house, the house I'd left 3 weeks earlier and hadn't returned to. The news showed her being led out in handcuffs, hair pulled back, wearing the Yale sweatshirt I'd bought her for Christmas. She looked small, scared. Nothing like the confident woman who'd built a criminal empire. Marcus Vance was arrested at a restaurant in South Park, having lunch with a city councilman. His attorney had him out on bond within 6 hours. Jessica's bail was set at $500,000. Her mother mortgaged her house to pay it. Jessica came home to an empty house. I'd already filed for divorce and emergency custody. The judge had granted me temporary full custody based on the criminal charges and the DEA's recommendation that Jessica posed a flight risk. She called me that night. I almost didn't answer. "Daniel." Her voice was hoarse, like she'd been crying for hours. "Please, I need to see the kids." "Your supervised visitation is scheduled for Sunday. 2 hours at the family court center." "Supervised visitation? They're my children." "You're facing federal drug trafficking charges. Be grateful you have any visitation." "This is your fault. You did this. You destroyed our family." The accusation was so absurd I almost laughed. I destroyed our family? Jessica, you were laundering money for a drug cartel. You put our children at risk every single day. You lied to me for 3 years, maybe longer. I didn't destroy anything. I just stopped pretending. I was trying to build something for us, for their future. By manufacturing fentanyl, do you know how many people die from that every year? Do you care? Silence. I thought so, I said. See you in court. I hung up and blocked her number. The trial took 18 months to reach. 18 months of depositions and discovery, and watching Jessica's legal team try every possible angle to minimize her involvement. She wasn't a leader, they argued. She was just handling paperwork. She didn't know what was really happening. She was a victim of Marcus Vance's manipulation. The prosecution, armed with my documentation and testimony from 3 other witnesses who'd taken plea deals, painted a different picture. Jessica Foster wasn't a victim. She was the architect. She'd structured the entire financial operation, created the shell companies, managed the money laundering. Without her expertise, Vance's operation would have collapsed under its own weight years ago. The trial lasted 6 weeks. I testified for 2 days, walking the jury through every property, every transaction, every lie. Jessica's attorney tried to make me look vindictive, a scorned husband seeking revenge. But the evidence spoke for itself. Marcus Vance was convicted on all counts: drug trafficking, money laundering, racketeering. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. He was sentenced to 32 years in federal prison. Jessica's verdict came 2 days later. Guilty on 14 of 17 counts. The jury acquitted her of the manufacturing charges. Apparently, they believed she hadn't known about the actual drug production, but convicted her on all the financial crimes. Sentencing was scheduled for 6 weeks later. I took the kids to visit her once before sentencing, at her attorney's request. Emma was 11 now. Tyler was 9. They'd spent the past 18 months in therapy, trying to understand why their mother was on the news, why kids at school whispered about them, why their family had exploded. The visitation room at the federal courthouse was painted an aggressive beige with plastic chairs and fluorescent lights that made everyone look sick. Jessica was already there when we arrived, wearing a gray suit her mother had brought, her hair shorter than I'd ever seen it. Emma ran to her. Tyler hesitated, then followed. I stayed by the door, giving them space but close enough to intervene if needed. "My babies," Jessica whispered, holding them. "I've missed you so much." "Why can't you come home?" Tyler asked. The question he'd been asking for 18 months. "Because Mommy made some very bad choices, and now I have to accept the consequences." Emma pulled back, her face serious. "Daddy says you might go to prison for a long time." Jessica's eyes met mine across the room. "That's possible, yes." "How long?" "I don't know yet, sweetheart. But no matter what happens, I want you to know that I love you. Both of you. More than anything in the world." "If you loved us," Emma said quietly, "you wouldn't have done those bad things." The words landed like a bomb. Jessica's face crumpled. "Emma, please." "You lied to us. You lied to Daddy. You hurt people." Emma's voice was shaking but determined. "My therapist says that people who really love you don't lie to you all the time." "Baby, it's complicated." "No, it's not." Emma stood up. "You chose to do bad things. Now you have to go to prison. That's what happens when you break the law. You taught me that." She walked back to me. Tyler lingered for a moment, then followed his sister. Jessica was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. "Daniel, please, don't let them hate me." "I never told them to hate you," I said. "I told them the truth. What you do with that is up to you." The sentencing hearing was on a Thursday in October. The courtroom was packed. Journalists, DEA agents, some of Marcus Vance's family members who'd shown up to watch Jessica get what they thought she deserved. The prosecution recommended 25 years. Jessica's attorney argued for 8, citing her cooperation, minimal, her lack of prior criminal history, and her role as a mother. Judge Patricia Smith listened to both sides, reviewed the evidence, and then spoke directly to Jessica. Ms. Foster, you are an intelligent, educated woman who had every advantage in life. You chose to use those advantages to facilitate a drug trafficking operation that flooded this community with deadly substances. You profited immensely while people died. You lied to your husband, endangered your children, and showed no remorse until you were caught. The court acknowledges that you were not directly involved in manufacturing or distribution. However, your financial expertise was essential to this operation's success. You weren't a victim. You were a willing and enthusiastic participant. This court sentences you to 18 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years of supervised release. You will pay restitution in the amount of $2.1 million, the full balance of your offshore account. You will forfeit all property and assets connected to Vance Properties, LLC. 18 years. Emma would be 29 when her mother was released. Tyler would be 27. Their entire childhoods gone. Jessica didn't react, just stood there, hands folded, face blank, like she'd already left her body and gone somewhere else. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. I got full custody. Jessica got supervised visitation, contingent on her behavior in prison and to be reassessed when she was released. The house was sold, the proceeds split according to what we'd each contributed. Turns out I'd paid for 90% of it. Her half went to restitution. I kept my job at Reynolds & Associates, though the first year after the arrest was brutal. Whispers in the hallway, pitying looks, clients who requested different engineers because they didn't want the publicity. But Robert Whitney stood by me, and eventually the whispers faded. Emma and Tyler adjusted, the way kids do. They saw their mother once a month at the federal prison in Alderson, West Virginia. A 6-hour drive each way that I made because, despite everything, she was still their mother. The visits were awkward, painful, but necessary. Emma remained distant. Tyler tried harder, telling Jessica about school and soccer and the things he was learning, desperate to maintain some connection. I started dating again after 2 years. Nothing serious at first, just coffee with a woman from my gym, dinner with someone Patricia set me up with. It felt strange, learning to trust again. Learning to believe that not everyone was hiding a secret criminal enterprise. 3 years after Jessica's sentencing, I met Caroline. She was a teacher at Emma's school, recently divorced herself with a son Tyler's age. We bonded over the wreckage of our previous marriages, over the challenge of rebuilding lives after betrayal. She knew everything about Jessica. It was impossible to hide in the age of Google. And she didn't run. We married last spring. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. Emma was my best woman. Tyler was the ring bearer. They'd both been in therapy for years by then, processing their mother's choices, their father's decisions, the collapse of the family they'd known. "Did you do the right thing?" Caroline asked me one night, after we'd put the kids to bed in our new house. A fresh start, no ghosts. Turning her in? I'd thought about that question every day for 5 years. "I don't know if it was right," I said, "but it was necessary. Jessica made her choices. I made mine. The kids will have to make theirs." "Do you regret it?" "I regret that it happened at all. I regret that I didn't see it sooner. I regret that my children have to grow up visiting their mother in prison." I paused. "But I don't regret telling the truth. We can't build anything real on a foundation of lies." Emma graduates high school next year. She wants to study criminal justice, maybe become a prosecutor. Tyler's in therapy less now, doing better, though he still has nightmares sometimes. They both know their mother's story. They've both had to decide what that means for them. Jessica will be eligible for parole in 4 more years. Whether she gets it depends on her behavior, her rehabilitation, the parole board's assessment. Her letters to the kids have become less frequent over time. Maybe she's finally accepting that some bridges burn completely. Or maybe she's just tired of reaching for something she can't have. I think about her sometimes. Wonder if she understands yet that the problem wasn't getting caught. The problem was choosing to build an empire on other people's suffering and believing she could keep it separate from the family she claimed to love. You can't compartmentalize evil. It spreads. It corrupts. It destroys everything it touches. I learned that the hard way. But I also learned that destruction can be necessary. That sometimes the only way to save what matters is to burn down what doesn't. That trust, once broken, can't be rebuilt. But it can be replaced with something harder, clearer, more honest. My children will never have the innocent childhood I'd hoped to give them. They'll carry their mother's choices for the rest of their lives. But they'll also know that their father chose truth over comfort. That he didn't look away when it would have been easier. That he taught them, through painful example, that love without accountability is just enabling. That's the lesson I hope they take from this wreckage. We are responsible for our choices. All of them. And when we choose wrong, the people who truly love us don't protect us from consequences. They hold us accountable, even when it breaks their hearts. Jessica made her choices. I made mine. The kids will make theirs. And somewhere in that terrible arithmetic, I have to believe we find our way to something like redemption. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, not the happy ending we were promised. Just the hard-won piece of knowing that when trust became ashes, I didn't pretend the fire wasn't burning. I faced it. I survived it. And I taught my children to do the same. That's all any of us can do.